Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten to see a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongeese.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
Happy Sunday evening, everybody. This is the Georgia Show, and we're going to start off with a little bit of news that qualifies as news in the Southeastern Conference. We learned about the SEC Media Day schedule, which will happen in July, but we're already talking about it. And the notable thing, as far as anyone around here is concerned, is that Hugh and Kirby Smart will be speaking on the same exact day in Nashville when they get going at the annual circus that is SEC Media Days. And the last one that doesn't include Texas and Oklahoma. A little bit of history between these two coaches, guys. I'm not expecting any fireworks between the two of them in person, but there will be comparisons made and a lot to look back on in Freeze's career at Ole Miss when the Rebels seemed to confound Kirby Smart's defenses a time or two.
Hey, Rusa, we were talking about this the other day. I'm not even sure. Here's what's funny about Bark After. I was thinking about this just now. Bark After Dark is. I'm not sure if this was a private conversation or we had this on the air, but we're talking about Hugh Freeze, and I just want to see a reporter say, "Hey, Coach, what do you think about open records requests? You know, just drop. Hey, Coach, iPhone, Samsung Galaxy. Which one should I get next, or something like that? Just hey, Coach, you ever heard of the landline?" The jokes could write themselves if somebody had the balls to do it, and I doubt they will. Like you said, Wes, there's not going to be a lot of fireworks, but I'm not going to be shy about it. I think Hugh Freeze is a pretty good football coach. I really do, and I think he can do some good things at Auburn, but it's still going to make me queasy when the guy talks, just by kind of some of the stuff he's done. And I'm not trying to get on a soapbox and preach about it, but it's just going to be weird because he's not a good guy. And, maybe he deserves redemption. He's had several chances. It's not just a second chance for him. But, hey, he's a good football coach, and that gets you a lot of places in this game.
Bobby Petrino still standing among us, buddy. Listen, just an
like Elton John, baby. Like Elton John. I'm still standing.
An absolute garbage person. It's going to be interesting for sure. And, this probably got asked during his tenure at Liberty, but because it was Liberty, I didn't see it. I'm interested in Hugh Freeze's thoughts on NIL because a lot of what he was doing was, not allowable at that time and certainly is now. And so I'm interested to know what Auburn's approach to NIL is and how that will play itself out. I'm sure he has a great vision for it. He was he was certainly taking part in it before.
He was a visionary.
And I'm like, before anybody comes for me and says, "Oh, that it's holier than thou." Look, listen, everybody's doing it. Okay, I'm not trying to pull that card and say that he was alone. He just got caught.
But there's a brazenness that it was done with that got him caught, and folks need to understand that part of it. In my opinion, like this was a stepping out. This was like not taking a step out of the line to look down the road and cheat. This was he walked out of the line. He walked up several spots. He got into a different spot, all with, just cash money falling off of him the whole time. I mean, it was obvious, and it wasn't even as fruitful. It was fruitful, but it wasn't as fruitful as it could have been or it should have been for the risk they took. And then obviously he goes and messes it all up by doing what he did. So, yeah, that's a good point, Roos. And I don't know that it's going to be an advantage for them because
no, I don't think so. I'm not, and I don't mean to imply that it will be, but I think that I'm just curious, in this era, what Hugh Freeze's vision is for NIL. And like I said, it's something he's obviously been coaching. It's not like he's been there before, but we'll see. He's an interesting character. And I think that there are a lot of people out there who feel like this is a pretty perfect marriage for the Auburn Tigers. I can't say that I'm not among them.
I want to know what Palmer's young brain thinks about Hugh Freeze.
Palmer, you get one question of Hugh Freeze. What are you going to ask him?
How was she?
How were they?
I don't know. know, guys. And
well, let's think about though, like where Georgia is now, where Auburn's going to be, and where these two coaches' programs were the last time they played. Georgia just getting waxed in Oxford in 2016, and Georgia still hasn't beaten Ole Miss under Kirby Smart. He'll have a chance to do that when the Lane train comes to town. But it's interesting to me, at least, that Hugh Freeze does have some bragging rights in his career over the top dog in coaching right now. And I think that's one thing that you can't take away from him.
Not the top two dogs.
And not to mention the success that he had when Kirby was a coordinator too. I mean,
and against Nick Saban, the head man.
Yeah. I mean, is there another coach in the SEC right now that has beaten both Nick Saban and Kirby Smart?
In the SEC right now, let's see. Mark Stoops, no. Lane Kiffin, no. Josh Heupel,
no.
Josh Heupel, no.
Napier hasn't done it. Brian,
I mean, who's beaten Saban? Coach O did, but he's not here.
Brian Kelly hasn't done it.
Brian Kelly hasn't.
Shane Beamer has not.
Yeah, I mean, the only other guy I can really put a finger on would be Gus Malzahn.
Right. That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah, that's the only other guy that I'm really thinking of at this particular time that has done it.
And Ed Orgeron.
And Ed, yeah. And Ed O.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, did beat both of them in that 2019 season.
Yeah. Gosh, couple of like polarizing figures when you think about it, just in different ways.
I love
Is
it.
Gus any good? Yeah, he's pretty good. You guys just didn't appreciate him a whole lot. Is Orgeron, what is he doing? Man, I don't know if y'all have heard the story, and I don't want to get us off on a bad rabbit trail. The story that Peter Schrager told on Ryan Russillo's podcast about Ed Orgeron. Y'all, it's one of the best stories. So apparently, just to make a long story short, Sean McVay's getting married, and he's getting married, and they're at a resort. And Eddie O's over there, like at the pool, just holding court with a bunch of women and other just people are there. And later on, Peter Schrager was obviously invited. There's all sorts of other people there. They go to the reception. You know, Sean McVay comes over to Peter Schrager, puts his arm around him and says, "Hey, man, what about Eddie O, dude?" He goes, "Yeah, dude, I didn't know you guys were tight." And he goes, "He wasn't invited. He's just here." And I don't know if he actually came to the wedding or not, but he was just hanging at the pool, dude.
I feel like that's how LSU felt.
And listen, I hate to like relay that show, but apparently if you haven't listened to it on the Russillo podcast, you're never going to hear it. But it's one of the funniest stories because he adds a little bit more to it, and there's some other conversations I think that go on in there. But it's one of the best. It's such a funny story.
Matthew C. asking if Muschamp beat both Kirby and Saban. I don't know that Muschamp ever beat Saban. No, he beat Kirby.
Yeah, he did. God, I forgot about South Carolina.
Also that 2019 season.
Yeah.
He was just bolstering his defensive coordinator resume for Kirby to be an appealing candidate.
No, because
Gus didn't happen in 2019.
No.
Gus happened in 2017.
At Orgeron and Gus happened in 2017.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you've had multiple of those things done in one season, which is pretty interesting.
All right. Well, we'll keep a pin in this, keep an eye on it. It's just February, like we said, but when the list of the schedule of SEC Media Days comes out, people do get interested in talking about which coaches are going to be there at the same time, and they hardly have time to see one another. But you do have an excuse to go down these rabbit trails and rabbit holes and talk about what it means for these guys to share the same stage. And obviously, Hugh Freeze returning to the league, to the conference, to Power 5 football is going to rattle the earth when he shows up. Some other storylines, I guess, to look out for. The last day of SEC Media Days is probably the best one, as Lane Kiffin will be there on the same day as Josh Heupel and Shane Beamer. So I know that he will have an entire stand-up routine ready to go to rib Josh Heupel about blowing his playoff chances against South Carolina. Meanwhile, everyone else can rib Lane Kiffin for blowing a pretty promising season with Ole Miss that should have ended a lot better than it started. But we'll have plenty of time to talk about that as we get closer to the actual SEC Media Days. All right, y'all had an idea about a pretty fascinating concept with Georgia's coordinators coming back, and I had a show sheet, had a rundown of what I thought we were going to do, and was at dinner and got blown up by 30 text messages explaining this hypothetical coaching draft that we're going to do. So I'm going to let y'all explain it because I am not going to lie, I'm a little lost. But let's do it.
Palmer, get to it, man. Tell them what it is. This is a basically Roos sprinkled in some salt and pepper at the end of
Palmer creation. This is a Palmer baby.
This is a Palmer Thomes creation.
Palmer, you're on full screen right now.
I don't like that. No, I mean, Roe brought up the point that Georgia has 9 of 10 on-field coaching assistants coming back for the next season. That's not happening all around college football, and it's especially not happening with back-to-back national champions all that often. National champions. I mean, there haven't been that many back-to-back champions. So what we're doing is we're going to we are going to draft these guys based on drafting 9 returning assistants. So not Mike Bobo. We're not excluding him already. We are drafting the 9 returning assistants based on.
We're drafting them and they come work at DawgsHQ.
Exactly.
We're just like, hey, dude, these guys have the cachet. These guys recruiting, coaching,
whatever you want.
Palmer, you go first. Palmer, you show us how this thing works. Everyone at home is just on the edge of their seats right now. Who are you taking first?
Oh, I'm going first. I thought we were going to randomize it.
You go first. You go first. We'll just go around the screen.
You might give Palmer the first pick.
I don't want to go first.
Palmer, Roos, Rowe, and then me, so I can see how y'all pick.
Okay.
All right.
I think.
Palmer, what pick did you want? Let's get something going here. What pick did you want?
I'll take the third pick.
I'll trade with you. I'll take first pick. I want first pick anyway.
I want first pick.
Okay. You're getting second pick.
All right, so it's Roe, Roos, me, Wes.
I want last.
I want Glenn Schumann.
Is this a draft?
All right.
Is this a snake draft? Is it like
snake draft? Yes, snake draft. I'll get 1 and 8.
Okay. All right. Are you going to give some reason?
Oh yeah, listen.
I made it clear.
I said Glenn Schumann was more. I would like to keep him if I was a Georgia fan more than I would want to keep Todd Monken. Glenn Schumann's a stud. I want Glenn Schumann.
All right, Jake Rowe. Glenn Schumann is off the board, and who's third? Palmer. Palmer. All right, go for it, Roos.
I'm taking Will Muschamp. Easy choice for me, no question about it. Honestly, I would have taken Will Muschamp with my first overall pick if I'd have had the first
value.
I think. So I got a great value at number 2. I'm feeling great about that. Experience, recruiting, and a guy who, unlike Rowe, my guy, probably going to be around Georgia for a while. I don't think Glenn Schumann long for the Dogs. I think somebody's going to come snap him up. I think Will Muschamp be around for a while. I think that will
classic Jake Roos moving the goalposts on me with this whole going to be around longer.
Hey, I like Will Muschamp as a higher pick than Glenn Schumann too.
You guys are nuts.
Well, good thing we didn't have to pick him. I'll go number 3, Todd Hartley. Just an absolute stud in terms of his recruiting ability. There's probably not a position coach in college football that maybe Brian Hartline at Ohio State that is dominating his position in making his position at his school the place to be. You've got Brock Bowers obviously there. You've got Oscar Delp obviously there. You're continuing to bring in guys and hey, the potential of Deuce is still out there. So I'm taking Todd Hartley and he's been an ace recruiter for Georgia, and he'll be an ace recruiter for Team Toms.
All right, I'm just going to do what everyone tells me to do in the comments. I'm taking Dale McGee. He can recruit the state of Georgia. He knows what it takes to work for Kirby Smart, and I think with Mike Bobo back, y'all can say all you want that he's just going to keep running what Todd Monken did, but he's going to want to revive and resuscitate the RBU legacy, as he really benefited from it a lot when Todd Gurley and Nick Chubb and Sony Michel were here for a little bit. And all those great backs, Noshawn, Thomas Brown, all those dudes. So give me Dale McGee. And as Mike Bobo has the RBU renaissance locked and loaded for the 2023 season and beyond.
Bold pick.
My man Connor Riley in here with a Wayne Jenkins quote. Don't put it up. It's got some profanities in it. The little Wayne Jenkins quote from the We Run This City in HBO on HBO. Awesome. Little John Bernthal.
All right, so Wes,
All right, so
You're up again.
yeah, the
I'm
snake's
back up.
on you.
Give me Shadera Uzo Deribe as another coach that I think has his work cut out for him a little bit, but I think he's proven.
Good on Twitter.
What's that?
He's good on Twitter.
Yeah, so there you go. That's why I picked him. No, those guys at the edge, he is building a machine, and Georgia has a lot of work, has a lot of room to grow there. And I think he is a stock that I would love to be in on the ground floor. And I'm going to watch Shadera's Dogs just continue to climb and continue to ascend all the way to the moon. So those are my two guys, offense and defense.
So that's not who I thought you would be taking. I had two defensive minds in mind.
Unpredictable, Palmer.
For me. And I was going to be happy with either of them, but I'm going to be especially happy buying stock on the ground floor of Fran Brown. Just again, another excellent recruiter, young mind in this sport. You hear the praise from Kirby Smart. You hear the praise coming out of Lincoln, Nebraska from drawing a blank on his name.
Matt Rule.
I mean, just look at the way he's recruiting this 2024 class already. Could sign the top 3 safeties in the country. Obviously, Will Muschamp is a big part of the recruiting on that back end as well. Kirby is a big part of it as well. But I think Fran Brown is an ace recruiter. Again, I'll take him. And with the way that Georgia's secondary looks for this coming season, I like my team.
I'm pretty.
You sound really confident, Palmer.
I'm dismayed, and I think that was a great pick because I was really hoping that I could.
I knew that Roos wanted Brown.
I knew you
wanted to see Fran and Muschamp. Those were actually, honestly, those would have been my top 2 picks.
I'll be curious to see.
Interesting. That's solid. I like that.
I'll be curious to see who you go with here because I was indifferent on whether I got Fran and this other guy. I think you're going to take him here, and I knew you wanted Fran.
I could go a couple different directions here for sure. But the guy that I'm going to go with is I'm going to go with tested, proven, solid Georgia Bulldog, Brian McClendon.
I cannot believe I'm going to get this guy for the HQ.
I know. And Roe is about to get him.
Listen,
I am blown away.
I'm going to tell you this. BMAC came in year 1, really turned the page for wide receiver, had an outstanding first year, is one of the best recruiters in the nation at the position, a position that Georgia really needs to upgrade and has needed to upgrade for some time. BMAC, a guy that I think great value here. I could have gone another direction. I think Jake Rowe will take the guy that I was thinking of, obviously. Yeah, sure. But listen, BMAC in year 1 under Kirby Smart flipped it up, man. I love what he's done. I love what he's done in the past. I think he's a great pick here.
And I'll say this too. I mean, listen, you guys are all crazy for letting this guy get to me.
See, this is unless you're taking Stacey Searles, this is the other one that I had.
Wes is the one that made this possible because Wes listened to the fans in the middle, and they just disagree with us. They love Del McGee and they love Chidera, so Wes kind of made this possible for me. I'm going to say that because I think all of us had way more time to think about this than Wes did. Trey Scott, man. It's got to be Trey Scott. And I really feel bad because I wanted to take Stacey Searles here if Trey Scott was off the board just to get him in there. I think we probably all picked Stacey Searles as the guy who would get left off.
Stacey Searles was my guess as the guy who would have been left off in the draft. Would you have taken Stacey over BMAC if I'd have left?
I would have taken Stacey over anybody but Trey Scott.
Wow.
Just to mess around with the people. I mean, just to keep him from not being out there. But I mean, come on, I'll take Glenn Schumann and Trey Scott. You want to talk about longevity? Del McGee is the only guy that's been around longer than those two. And Trey Scott, man, he came in on the ground floor. He built that room up by himself, just like Glenn Schumann did. And no offense to Del McGee, who I think is phenomenal and has done a great job. He didn't have but one way to go as far as his room went. You weren't going to get better than Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. And he did improve that room, but with DeAndre Swift. But I mean, it wasn't going to get any better than 2017. So, that's the one way I look at it. But, obviously Stacey Searles, offensive line coach, been around before. He's associated with Mike Bobo, so nobody likes him. And on top of it all, he's an offensive line coach, Paul. Nobody likes an offensive line coach.
Rose team might be running a Mike Bobo looking offense without any sort of offensive coaches.
There's no factual basis behind that, Palmer. You're part of the problem.
I will say that Jake Rowe, Trey Scott, another thing, and shout out, we talk about him a lot on the show, but he's a big part of the message board. Our guy Guna over on the board points out, and I agree with him. If Trey Scott offers a kid on the defensive line, you can kind of throw the ranking out the window. That guy has turned into an excellent evaluator and developed some fantastic kids on that defensive line. You got to give him a lot of credit for that, for sure.
Now, I've just had another thought come to my mind here. How would y'all when we're talking Georgia assistants, how would y'all power rank the 4 head coaches that are former assistants of Kirby? Dan Lanning, Sam Pittman, Mel Tucker, and Shane Beamer.
Let's save that for another show, Palmer. We're going to run out of things to talk about this offseason.
Yeah. Save the good stuff, man. We can do 20.
That's just a tease. All right, what do we
look on Wes's face? I think Wes ended up liking the segment pretty good, although he probably wishes he had had some time to work on it himself.
No, I'm very confident in my picks. Who's next? Jake Roos?
No. We're done.
That's it.
We're done. Yeah, we were leaving out the 9th guy.
Yeah. I mean, it was just Searles was the only one left. Now
and there was no Mike Bobo.
No, sure. But had Mike Bobo been in this draft, I would have been interested to see where he would have fallen. Because I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't have taken him with the 2nd pick. I know Rowe wouldn't have taken him with the 1st.
No, I would have taken him with the 8th if he was there.
I would have taken him at 3
with the 8th pick. Yeah, I hope you got the OC. Gets
I would have taken him super high.
I would have figured. I think
would have taken him at 4, Wes, because I would not have taken him at 3.
Yeah, I think Wes would have got him at 4.
I would have taken him. Yeah, no doubt. I think Georgia's offense is going to statistically be better next season in a lot of ways. Just not taking anything away from Bobo, but I keep coming back to the schedule, man. I keep coming back to how manageable the schedule is going to be. I think that this quarterback competition in the spring is going to be great for whoever ends up being the starter. Mm-hmm. It's going to be heated. It's going to be competitive. The guy that wins it will have earned it and will be very competent, very confident in running the show. And I know Bobo's got his critics, but he's the offensive coordinator. I mean, that is the top flight guy. And, picking at 4, I know both of the co-defensive coordinators would have been gone. So that's why I would have taken Bobo.
Now, here's a question for y'all. If Todd Monken was available, Wes or Rowe, you wouldn't have taken him. I know you're.
Yeah, I probably would have. I would have taken Schumann at 1. Yeah.
Would you? Would you have taken him?
No, I would not have.
See, so I would have gotten the steal of the draft.
I would have also stuck with Muschamp.
I would have gotten the steal. Palmer Thomas, big Monken guy. Watch him this fall with his Ravens gear on the podcast.
Yeah. Baltimore Monken and Baltimore Palmer.
Speaking of gear.
An easy pick, no matter what you want to go for, is Breaking T. They have an amazing assortment and collection of championship gear. And they had some really, really strong stuff even before Georgia went back-to-back with T-shirts, hoodies, apparel, coffee mugs, all that stuff on some of your favorite players and some of your favorite moments, like Georgia going back-to-back as national champions in college football. Shout out to our buddy Sam Franco, who got passed over by the Braves for their PA gig, but I know he'll keep holding it down in Athens, and he helps us out a lot with the work over at Breaking T as well. So thank you, Sam. Thank you, Breaking T. Y'all get you one. The link is in the episode description,
you need a T-shirt. Buy yourself a T-shirt.
There you go. The West.
So we had a couple features that y'all put up on DawgsHQ this week on some up-and-coming Bulldogs that weren't quite household names, but I know by this time next year, a lot of fans will like to think that they could be. One on defense, one on offense, Andrew Paul at the running back position, and Darris Smith. Let's just take a deep dive in some, speaking of rising stocks, let's talk about those guys. Let's start with Andrew Paul and Roos. Really, every time I think about this guy, I think about that first signing day when I was on the staff and you were on the ground talking to Andrew Paul. Palmer, you put some things together, and Ro, I know you've got your ear to the ground as well on this guy. What's the progress? What are we looking at here? How's he doing? And by this time next year, how do y'all expect him to be viewed as a part of Georgia's backfield?
I think
Bruce,
probably
I'll let
looking
you
more of a
start.
late season guy. I'm sorry, Palmer. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think probably looking more of a late season guy, just because of the nature of that injury. It did happen early in camp. I mean, that's just a tough position to play that with a torn ACL. So, I mean, I haven't heard a lot about his recovery. I think he'll probably be limited this spring. But in terms of when can he come on, I think that's usually like kind of like a 24-month injury in terms of like getting back to your old self. So. I think it's probably reasonable to expect maybe, come, next October, November, that maybe he's starting to do a little bit more. Because that's probably also ultimately when Georgia's probably going to have a couple guys dinged up and they want to limit things for somebody else. And that's why Branson Robinson kind of took some snaps there at one portion of the season when Kendall Milton was down. I think that's kind of what you're looking at this year out of him.
A 24-month injury, you think it is?
No, I just mean like to get back to your old self, like to be, to be vintage form. Because a lot of guys need two seasons. It's that second season back.
Yeah. I think that was the case for Chubb.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
I will say we don't know what the old form for Andrew Paul looks like at the college level because there is no old form of Andrew Paul at the college level. I'm very curious to see, and we never saw how his game translated from what he was doing in Dallas to what he can do in Athens. I'm very curious to see, and Roos, you talked to him, you got to see him in person. I'm very curious to see how he can contribute, if he can contribute as a pass catcher, because you look at Georgia's running back room and what they're losing in Kenny McIntosh. Kendall Milton is probably their best option as a pass catcher right now.
I would say Dejon Edwards.
Yes.
No
question. Yes.
No.
Absolutely.
He catches the ball well.
It's stock Sunday, and I'm stock down on Dejon Edwards as a pass catcher.
I disagree completely. I'm with Roe on this one. To me, Dejon Edwards is the premier guy at the pass catching spot. I think we saw that in his high school film as well.
Yeah,
Andrew Paul showed some of that in his game and in his high school film and put up video game numbers. But we have to take into account that this is a private school league that he's playing in. So that always skews things a bit. I'm not saying that they're bad players or it's a bad program or anything like that, but it does. It's not 7A ball each and every week. I mean, it's a different thing. But Paul was one of the most interesting guys, and especially one of those guys who, like Brett Seither, who like exploded after the early signing period. I mean, just absolutely flew up charts. Nobody had heard of Andrew Paul on the Georgia beat until like around that first signing period. And
well, that's my first round draft pick, Del McGee. At work, guys.
Out of nowhere, this kid bursts onto the scene. The film's outstanding. The coach, gave glowing reviews. His high school coach, loved him, said he'd never coached a player like him, said he was a generational running back for their team, and that's all well and good at a high school level. But like Palmer said, we don't know how his game translates over. And is it a case too where, and obviously for Zamir, it was a much larger setback injury wise, but Zamir White, I had people tell me that Zamir White was the greatest high school football player they've ever seen in person.
Adrian Peterson was the comparison we
right.
always heard. He's the next AP.
Zamir White was a great player in college. He was a very good player. He was not Adrian Peterson, okay?
No.
So that changed things a lot for him. So we'll never know what Andrew Paul might have been. Now, who knows? Maybe he comes back better than ever before. Whatever we get is just what we'll get, and that's what we'll know of him. But how will that affect what we saw maybe in that high school film? I don't know that, and I'm intrigued to see. But there was some positive buzz, it felt like, around him in camp prior to that injury last year. I mean, there was I feel like I heard a few good things about, what he was doing. This was kind of a great late find was sort of the prevailing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it just keeps pointing back to the evaluation of this Georgia staff and the way they evaluate talent. And not that they're batting 1,000, every staff's going to miss on somebody here or there, but they do seem to find some diamonds in the rough. How about Darris Smith? Not exactly a diamond in the rough. You look at him, he's one of the guys you want hopping off the bus first, and he can hop really high too. If that kick in the national championship in my mind, it was the national championship. If that kick in the Peach Bowl semifinal was on target, he probably would have blocked it. And Palmer, you had a pretty interesting look at how his trajectory is looking right now going into spring. And his dad hops into the comments section pretty often. I don't know if he's in here tonight, but we're certainly grateful for his attendance and watching the show. And we're not just doing this because he pops in here every now and then, but his son could be a pretty big factor for the Dogs next season.
Yeah, so speaking about that kick, I asked him. I didn't include it in the piece because it probably wasn't necessary. Didn't really fit what I was writing there, but he told me he thought it would have been blocked if it had been straight. Looking back at the photos, having seen the film, he felt like it was going to get blocked. So, but I mean, Darris is very confident in his ability, and I think that's a great thing because you look at that Georgia edge rusher room, and they're losing two big names, Robert Beal, Nolan Smith, two guys that have been very productive over the last few seasons. Beal, the forgotten sack leader from the 2021 championship team. Nolan was off to one hell of a start in 2022, had 7 tackles for loss in 8 games, 7 straight games when he went down against Florida. And he was on a tear in that Florida game. Very well could have ended up with more in that game and on down the line. Certainly, Darris told me he thinks he has the potential to be the best pass rusher on this team. And that says a lot when you've got Michael Williams coming off the edge, as a defensive end. When you've got guys like Marvin Jones, 2 of his classmates in that 2022 signing class. Darris, sees the comparisons, to the former players, understands the athleticism and that he has, and understands the need for him to grow and develop that athleticism. It's why he was very willing to work at Star. He spent a good bit of the snaps and in practice and such. He was developed as a pass rusher already knew how to do that, needed to develop the zone coverage skill. So spent some time with the defensive backs, worked on that, and really wants to become an all-around player. I am, I said I was stocked down on Dejan Edwards' pass catching ability. I am stocked up on Darris Smith and his pass rush ability.
I freaking love Darris Smith. I'm a huge Darris Smith guy. All right. I think that this is a breakthrough year for Darris Smith. I think he has all the tools. It will not be lack of athleticism that keeps Darris Smith off of the field. All right. If it's going to be anything, it's going to be about scheme, that kind of thing. Anthony White over here says can be the next Leonard Floyd. I think he has that kind of upside.
And I'll don't mean to interrupt, but that's a name that Kirby told Darris. Kirby mentioned Darris. Hey, Leonard worked at Star some. Got some reps there, and so that was part of the reasoning why he wanted him to develop at that position.
Well. And listen, Adam Anderson. The expectations were through the roof. What happened with him. I think that Darris Smith can be what Adam Anderson was supposed to be, and was on the trajectory to be. Now, I'm not going to say that he can reach that level in year 2. I don't know that that's the case. I think that there may still be some time to go, but I think as the overall as his career progresses, Darris Smith is going to probably find himself. It would not surprise me to see a first round pick. I think you're talking top 2 to 3 rounds over the course of his career. Kid has every measurable you can go for. You can the speed, the size. It's just about picking up the game and putting the pieces together. I think that may have hampered him a little bit last year. if we're being honest about it. But I think that, listen, you're coming from Appleton County, and that's they play some good ball down there, but that ain't SEC football. All right, so it's a little bit different world down there. Darris Smith, one of the more rare athletes, I think, to come out of Appleton County in a bit as well. And I'm very, very high on his chances over the course.
Yeah, well, I mean, those are names that show up in the comments section. That's not why I wanted to include them in the show tonight. Palmer picked up a lot of that this week, and I'm just kind of following the lead of that work. So great job, Palmer dog. But I think it's worth it. I think these guys and these profiles on names that will have an impact, should have an impact, provided they stay healthy. And of course, I think Darris's dad being a part of the show as often as he is, I wanted to tip my cap to him, but he also deserved it. All right, let's take a look at some dog stocks, guys. I don't have the heart to look at my actual stock portfolio these days, but I can look at some dog stocks. Let's go stock up, stock down. Palmer, I'm going to start with you, man.
Please don't. I gotta gather my thoughts here.
I'll go.
No,
I'll go.
you have.
Palmer's
you know what your stock is tonight.
Is
And
it
if you don't do it, then I'll just do it right now.
stock down on Georgia basketball?
Stock up on the Georgia Bama basketball rivalry. This is Mike White's origin story, baby. He's never gonna have another game like that in his career. He went back onto the bus or the private jet or whatever they took, and he did some long, cold soul searching. And this is going to be a bloodbath. Every single Georgia basketball game after this will be pain. Stock up on Mike White.
Oh my God.
How's that for some spin zone?
There you go. That's gorgeous, dude. That's the best there is.
One of the Jakes take it.
All right, I'm going to go stock up today on a former dog, and that's Solomon Kinley. And the reason I'm shouting out Solomon Kinley is I had a chance to interview a young man at Rains High School for the 2025 class, another Solomon this time, and another offensive lineman named Solomon Thomas. This guy, 6'4", about 280 pounds. Georgia offer, about 16 other offers in for him already. Rains High School, the alma mater of Solomon Kinley as well. And I said, what is the relationship between you two guys? Do you know each other? And he said, man, that's like my big brother. He calls me his little homie. We're tight. He's told me Georgia was the best time he ever had playing football, and, said that it's a lot of hard work and a lot of grind. I just thought it was great to hear that for Solomon Kinley, a guy that a lot of people kind of looked over, I think, in that first class. A big find by Sam Pittman to go in and find that guy. There were a lot of rumors out there at the time. I remember this very vividly, that some of Solomon Kinley's offers were not actual offers. And I remember being told that by a couple people. Good to hear his name again, man. So shout out Solomon Kinley. Stock up on him. Stock up on guys named Solomon from Rains High School and Georgia's chances with him.
Cool kid, man. Really cool kid to cover, and really enjoyed getting to know him. I told the story on the board. I ran into him one day in the facility. I'm like, Solly, you look kind of thin. Like, what are you weighing right now? He's like 32, 35, something like that. He didn't even bother putting the 3 in front of it. He just said 32, 35.
32.
What's understood doesn't have to be explained.
Yeah. And I think, he didn't invent that. I think Tony Siragusa was the first I ever heard doing that. He would do it. They talked about how he did it on Hard Knocks or something. But I just thought that was hilarious. He was 32, 35.
He was speaking in the UK measurement of stone.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. I'm chopping wood on guys, listen. It's a tough one for me to chop wood on. I can't wait to see Roos's face when I say this.
You don't have to We're doing
non-alcoholic beer. I'm not chopping wood. I'm dog stock. Stock up. Sorry.
Stock up.
I'm chopping wood. I'm okay. I'm not going to Wednesdays. Wood Wednesdays. Non-alcoholic beer. All right. So I was in Asheville this past weekend, had a little bit of a cold, whatever. Didn't really want to imbibe. So I had non-alcoholic beer. Athletic Brewing or whatever, had a golden ale, had a couple of hazy IPAs today for lunch. And man, I tell you what, dude, just good tasting stuff. And I was able to have 2 beers with some friends and drive home today perfectly fine because there was no alcohol in it. But it was awesome. I very much enjoyed it. And I was just, I guess it's made such a profound, like, oh, I can't believe I actually like that I had to go stock up today.
Man, what a concept.
Non-alcoholic beers.
What is, what's I need to look at the calories. I mean,
They're not that bad. They're like 70 calories.
Oh, wow. So you're getting like a half to a third of an IPA calorie.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'm telling you, really tasty, dude. Athletic Brewing, I think out of San Diego.
Yeah.
If you're just a beer lover, I love beer, always have, but I've always said it, drinking those high gravity beers just ruins me for a little while. Like,
I've always said it. I love them.
Yeah, I do. I love them. I love the taste of them. They're great. But this thing was close and it was pretty good. It was good stuff. Ducati Tech coming in. He knows.
Is there a placebo effect with non-alcoholic beer where you still think you're getting a little tipsy, a little buzz?
No, not really. I think it's a good thing to drink when you're doing other hard drugs, though.
I like to pour vodka into mine.
It just reminds me of that scene in Wolf of Wall Street whenever Jonah Hill's like, so if you drink enough of them, you get effed up, and he's like, no, they're not alcoholic. That's the point.
Yeah. Everyone has that friend who insisted they were getting drunk off of Welch's sparkling grapefruit juice at the parents' New Year's Eve party.
Communion.
Oh, yeah.
Or they were just putting vodka in it. No way to know. Thanks for tuning into the Georgia Show, y'all. We got a big week coming up as we wrap up February and get into March. Spring ball approaches and baseball approaching as well. Palmer, how was your trip out to the Foley Field extravaganza?
Oh, it was great. I mean, I enjoyed the first 2 games up from on Kudzu Hill. Drank some, alcoholic
beers.
Yeah,
Loaded beers.
There were no non-alcoholic beers to be found up there. But enjoy the spring weather. Watch the games. They split the first 2, and then I went to work on Sunday today for game 3, the rubber game. And they won it. Parks Harbor, yes. Rhett Womack, Parks Harbor is mashing 6 RBIs, 4 runs scored, 2 home runs. Had a home run yesterday, a home run today. Georgia wins 10-5 today to take the series over Jacksonville State.
And Princeton coming to town the 24th through
nerds.
They got 4 games against them. They'll have a doubleheader next Saturday. So
Parks Harbor is a great baseball name.
It really is.
I saw somebody say it would be a damn shame if he wasn't drafted by the Red Sox.
Pax Harbor. You got to play baseball if your name's Parks Harbor. You got to subscribe to the Georgia Show if you don't already, and you got to take our premium membership for a spin. That premium special still going on right now over at DawgsHQ.com through the end of August. So y'all check that out. It is a great deal, great way for y'all to check out what's going on behind the paywall over at our site if you aren't already familiar with it as well. It's a lot like this, but we actually give you some really good information. This is just kind of scratching the surface without revealing too much of the hard work that's going on our message board and in those premium articles. So we invite you to do that. Jake Rowe are always emptying the mailbag every Friday, and Jake Roos has some scoop on recruiting prospects that you always want to keep an eye on, keep tabs on, and know how Georgia's trending. And typically, Georgia's doing pretty well, but it is good to know the specifics, the ins and outs, and what these guys are having to say about Kirby Smart's program as it continues to look towards a three-peat, guys. Can't believe we're saying that. Y'all have a great week. We'll be back on Wednesday with the Georgia Show and with Bark After Dark tomorrow night, Monday, right here on the DawgsHQ YouTube channel. So don't miss that. Some really good programming going on. Thanks for joining us as always. Y'all are doing a great job in the comment section. And Tennessee, man, God bless you. Y'all have a great week. We'll catch you next time.